Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name is Serge.
My name is James.
And you put it out in the tweet yesterday. It's the last pod we're doing together for the main, for the majority of listeners, non-patrons, for a week. So we better make it a good one, James.
Hold on. You make it sound like we ain't doing no podcast next week.
No. We have Correspondence Week coming out next week. 20 podcasts with correspondence from every single Premier League club. Now, what's fascinating, James, is today's episode is a pure Q&A special. Thank you to everybody that sent in questions. 50 questions in total. There's a couple of names that appear a lot. One is Matthew Doherty, and the other one is
Doherty. I've nearly got it now, haven't I?
We're practicing. We're going to be so good.
If you sign in for us, I'm going to pronounce it right.
And the other is Lionel Messi.
I could have expected those two, yeah.
We have already recorded with our Wolves correspondent, Bradley, with the rumours flying around. We're recording today with Johnny Pring, and obviously Doherty was a good topic of conversation in that. And it's important to point out that this deal isn't done. And we're recording with Johnny Pringle, our City correspondent today. And again, that Messi deal is not done, but it's amazing the excitement that they've created. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
First thing to say is I've gone old school with this, and I genuinely put in the tweet Mute's conversation. I've not read a single one of these questions, but I could have guessed that those two would feature quite prominently. On Messi first, I'm pretty sure that when the football season kicks off and when the transfer window closes, he'll be a Barcelona player. Mm-hmm. We've been here before, probably not to this scale, but with Barcelona, there's so much politics in the background. I've spoke to you offline about this. Ronald Koeman signed a 2-year contract and he knows he's only going to manage Barcelona for a maximum of 1 year. He's gone in there knowing that the presidency of Barcelona is going to change, most likely. The new president's going to want Xavi. He's gone in there for a maximum of a year's work with 2 years' salary. That in itself sums up much of the problems with Barcelona at the moment. I mean, Ronald Koeman is a good coach. It went badly for him at Everton. He did well at Southampton. He's doing okay with Holland. But I also think that Messi probably looked at it and went, this is it. This is your solution. Messi's looking for the best coach in the world, right? And the last few have been quite underwhelming from that perspective. So I could see the lure of working with Guardiola, playing with Aguero at Manchester City, all that. I think this is going to wrangle on, mate. And I think what will end up happening is he'll end up getting an agreement, which is fine. And next year it will be all sweetness and light because his mate Xavi's managing the team and he'll be happy again. And it will just be a case of suffering it. I mean, if it's something that ends up going into court, though, whether he can get out of his contract or not, then that is staggering. I'd be amazed if he leaves there. I still feel that, even though he said he wants to leave. Sometimes what you say to people is not necessarily what you mean, right? Think of women.
I love you, James.
Barcelona's been like a long-term woman for him.
You didn't hear what I just said to you.
What's that?
I just said, I love you, James.
I love you too, mate. Listen.
Sometimes what you say is not what you mean.
Yeah, I get you. Barcelona, has been very nice to him for a long time, and he's been very nice to his missus as well. They've had a bust-up. They'll probably fix it. On Doherty, I'm staggered if this happens, and that was my first reaction. We spoke about this on our Tottenham podcast on Tuesday, for patrons, where I was very dismissive of it. I was like, this just makes no sense. And when we sat down to we recorded with Bradley last night for the Wolves podcast next week, and he's like, I don't understand what's going on here either. It doesn't make any sense. I've got a theory. My first theory was that yesterday was just being rehashed news, where it seemed to be a lot of stuff on Twitter on Tuesday. And then yesterday, a lot of the tabloids seemed to pick it up. And I just thought it was the same news being recycled. Then when people like Romano is tweeting and saying, yeah, it's in advanced talks, that's the point where I go, okay, shit. There's genuinely talks happening between the two clubs. I know that's legit. He's not tweeting that for jokes because the guy's got great intel. So it appears that, yes, Tottenham are trying to buy Doherty. And it just doesn't add up. It doesn't add up for a number of reasons. One, if you remove London and the better training ground and a better stadium, which you could argue are three very good reasons, I don't see why Doherty would want to move from Wolves to Tottenham at the moment. It just doesn't add up to me. I think he's playing for a good side who, on a competitive level, the two sides are not too far away. Spurs have greater immediate power because everything's already in place, but Wolves is a growing football club. Does he think, if I go to Spurs, I've got more chance of winning a trophy directly under Mourinho? Or does he not see what happened with Wolves last year, and they were at one stage looking like they were going to really push for fourth and got to the quarterfinals of the Europa League? Doesn't make sense. The transfer fee of what's being reported is 12 million up to 16 million with add-ons. Somebody is having a joke. That's not even a real transfer fee in the modern market. Ben Chilwell went to Chelsea yesterday for 50 million. I realised Ben Chilwell was about 6 years younger. But Doherty's 28. He's in the prime of his career. You're telling me seriously, 12 years of down payment for one of the best wing-backs in the Premier League. And that's genuinely real. And I realise we very much look at that from a fantasy football perspective, and we don't know so much about the defensive because we just look at the offensive with Doherty all the time. But he genuinely is. He's one of the best defensive wing-backs, and that's important to say at this stage, in the Premier League. I don't understand, genuinely, how Tottenham are getting him so cheap. It's an unusual one from Tottenham's perspective to buy someone at that age, but it's not unusual if they can get someone at that age that cheap.
Yeah.
I have a theory.
It's a steal.
I have a theory that George Mendes does a lot of work with Wolves on a lot of their transfers. Obviously, have a large Portuguese contingent that we all know. He's also basically best mates with Mourinho. Something doesn't add up. It's not right. Doherty's transfer market, I think if Manchester United were bidding for Doherty tomorrow, we're starting at £30 million. Like, genuinely. So it just doesn't feel right. I don't get it.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll believe it when it happens.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's stop speculating until and when it does happen, and then we can kind of go into more detail on what we think about it. Let me share a controversial opinion with you, James, about Wolves, which I wanted to talk to Bradley about yesterday, but we didn't get the time. What Wolves are doing, because they're not spending a lot of money, is looking for good young talent, bringing it through and trying to turn them into stars, which they've done with quite a few good young players. And you can see a certain conveyor belt coming through as well. That, as a means to survive, is very hard to do consistently over 5, 7, 8 years. Eventually, you make 3 or 4 bad transfers. A couple of the stars that you've built up get taken away by the bigger clubs, which inevitably happens. They lose Nuno, and I suppose their model is very difficult to keep consistency with because you're forever trying to bring through young players and not spend a lot of money. And I don't think they'll transition into being a big spenders. Like, look at what the amount of money we spend or the amount of money that maybe even Everton, Newcastle is spending. I don't see Wolves spending that kind of money. I don't know if they have that depth.
Well, that's the other flip is there, and we asked this question to Bradley last night, and he obviously doesn't know the answer at this stage, but is something wrong there financially because of what's happened with COVID and stuff? Are they in a position to sell? I would take the look at that, and if that was really the case, put Traore on the market and you'll suddenly find 70, 80 million knocking at your door, I should imagine. So in terms of the players that they acquire, I slightly disagree with some of those comments because Moutinho is a very experienced player.
Yeah, he's older, but like
Raul
Neto,
Jimenez was bought in unknown, but like at 26, 27. So it's not a case of always been young players for them necessarily.
Okay, unheard of players.
Rui Patricio in goals, Portugal's European Championship winning goalkeeper, right? So I wouldn't say it's necessarily all unproven players. Yes, a club like Wolves, we've spoken about this before. If you're looking to push into the top 4, you can't go and compete in the transfer market with the likes of Chelsea, for example, because they're going to blow you out the money for money. And obviously the lure of the European football and the historical of the football club over the last 20 years. So you have to punch differently. So I spoke about Everton need to do this. Punch differently in the transfer market. Don't go and try and compete with the same guys the top 4 are going for. So then, yes, therefore, you do need to go and find new stars. You do need to dip into the Championship or into Portuguese or Spanish markets or whatever to find your own little gems. I think the way they're running their football clubs is very wise. Let's not forget with them, got promoted 2 years ago, mate. It's not any of us would sit here for a second and think they'd finish outside the top half.
Yeah,
like, they're very impressive. Even if Doherty left, Jimenez left, just arguably for argument's sake, I still think they'd finish top half. Good side, mate.
They are.
I wouldn't be overly concerned from their perspective.
My thing is long term. Like short term, sure, within the next couple of seasons, I don't see him having any problem. But replicating this is not easy, bringing through talent. But you mentioned a club there in Everton, the Toffees. It's a perfect segue because the first question we have in our Q&A special, James, is about Everton. We are going to attempt to get through all 50 questions that we've had, and we didn't make it 50 questions for any reason other than that's the number that we had sent in. And I reckon, based on the fact that Messi and Doherty appear a few times, I reckon we can do this, James.
Just say Doherty.
Doherty. I think we can. I think we can.
It's not going to work for you.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Right. Peter Barrett says, what price would you have James Rodriguez in FPL? And do you think Everton are capable of getting top 6 if they get the 3 midfielders they are strongly linked with? I think James Rodriguez
Bloody hell.
8 to 9 million.
I mean, I wouldn't touch him personally unless he came in at a silly price, 6.5 or something like that.
Yeah, no one's going near him.
I wouldn't go near him personally. What price will he come in at? I mean,
7,
there's scope that
8.
will be eight or more. It's the historical to play. This guy was the best player at the World Cup 6 years ago, right? And people will remember that. So it's a really strange one what's happened with his career. Basically, pretty much since he went to Real Madrid, went on loan to Bayern Munich. I mean, he's nowhere to be seen there from that perspective. It's a really strange one, and it's probably with respect to Everton, it's a bit of a nosedive, isn't it? From Real Madrid, Bayern Munich to Everton, basically.
Yeah.
It's not a slight on Everton. I could be saying Tottenham in that place.
They're probably giving him a decent salary, though. I did ask Peter who the 3 midfielders that they're strongly linked with is.
Do you have one. I think Alan from Napoli is another.
He'd have a big impact.
The thing is, these guys would need time to settle in. Everton finishing top 6?
No chance.
No, to be honest.
Top
as
10
as it stands
push.
around now, yeah, I think top 10 would be a push with what they've got at the moment.
Yeah. Let's do Messi now. Rakship Chopra says, Messi, that's the question. And Nick Maynard says, are you doing a Messi pod? I'll tell you, we did a Messi 24-hour live stream. That was pretty messy. Especially after the champ man. Yeah, I mean, James has said it. He doesn't think he's come into the Premier League. Should he? I think we'll all buy him, regardless of what his price is. And at that point, he's not really going to be a differential. But Messi could and would be a 300-point player if he was in the Premier League. So
that is what you'd expect from me. I think he had 46 attacking returns in the Liga last year. I think it's 25 goals, 21 assists, and that's average for him.
Yeah.
In fact, no, that's below average. Let's be honest. He's getting on. It's worth saying. I said to you privately, Suj, that if he was to leave, I'd like to see him rock up at Juventus because I think it would be great to see him play with Ronaldo for a year or two.
Ronaldo and Messi with what, Dybala in front of him?
It doesn't matter. Just nine defenders, right? You'd probably someone in front of him with a bit of pace. But I mean, yeah, you'd have to go. If Messi and Ronaldo played together, you'd have to watch them, wouldn't you? You'd be like, I've got to tune in and see what this looks like.
Tune into Turin.
If I move to Turin, I might be able to watch Premier League football, by the way. But that's Tuesday's podcast gone. That's where I'd like him to go. If he came here, I wouldn't have an issue with him coming to Manchester City. Personally, my outlook on that would be my own team is not going to be able to compete with City in the next couple of years. Why Messi would be there, so he can probably go there and enjoy it, right? So Liverpool fans and United fans would probably strongly disagree with that. But if he came in, I mean, if he's a 14 million forward, you blink.
Forward. 14 million is a lot of money, but you're going to have to make sacrifices elsewhere, which means you'll only get away with one premium midfielder from the 5 or 6, if you include Bruno Fernandes that we talk about regularly, Sterling, De Bruyne, Salah, Mane, Aubameyang, Bruno. You'd only have one of those. And suddenly then you're thinking, am I weakening my squad elsewhere? But no, I would not blink. I would just buy him.
The thing is,
He'd be a midfielder. He'd be a midfielder.
I'm not sure about that, actually.
Wide. He plays wide off the right, man. He plays in no different position to Greenwood or Salah or whatever.
No,
if there's
not
a striker
necessarily.
in front of him, I think he'd have to be a midfielder.
It depends. I think, just by the way, if he went to Manchester City, we'd play as a false nine. He played wherever the fuck he wanted. You'd captain him nearly every week as well, wouldn't you? That's the thing.
But if he went in as a forward at 14 million and Aguero was fit, you'd buy Aguero at 10.5 because Messi would be putting on a plate for him every game. So it'd be one of those where the assists that he'll provide for the other players might make them more attractive all of a sudden as well. And that would be a big difference. 3.5 million between Aguero and Messi. That's a big difference. If you could get away with Aguero and get 80-70% of the points that Messi scored, it might be viable.
If he joined Manchester City, I think he'd come in at 13 as a midfielder or forward. I don't think it'd be more than that. Yeah,
agreed. This is from FPL Canada. Do we keep Doherty in our drafts now? He's at Spurs. Well, he's not at Spurs. Firstly, let's say that. You're adamant that you wouldn't keep him if he moved to you.
I'd almost definitely have him in Sky. I'd say that. As the Spurs coverage would make complete sense. A lot of the question is it's not a case of whether I would or wouldn't have. No, I would just take him out. He's a certain in my squad if he stays at Wolves. If he's at Spurs, no. And also, you need to reassess it. Spurs, as I've said many times, will play a back four, in my opinion. But the signing of someone like that does change the possibility. What if, I don't know, let's just say Spurs rocked up tomorrow and bought Marcos Alonso, who Chelsea want to get rid of. That's very unlikely to happen. But all I'm saying, if that happened, suddenly you're looking at it going, well, actually, Spurs might play with wing-backs this year. And then it's a different conversation.
I'm afraid you're getting the wrong North London club there. It's the other lot that buy 30-plus-year-old Chelsea players. It's not you.
Yes, that's true. Very true. We have bought the likes of Carlo Cudicini in the past, in fairness. So, the one thing I would point out importantly is a lot of people are already making the association of Doherty playing the Aurier role. This with the ball, you fly up to right wing, and without the ball, you play in a back four. That's the way we played against Ipswich in the friendly at the weekend. That's the way we played in a number of games, particularly during the winter period under Mourinho, less so towards the end of the season. I'm not convinced that that's necessarily how we're going to line up just because Doherty comes in the door. That's how we're going to play every week. We can't play that tactic every fucking game. People can see it coming. It becomes predictable.
Yeah.
But he fits into the Mourinho mantra. One of the players that's been regularly linked with Spurs over the last 9 months is Max Aarons of Norwich. And the one thing I've always maintained all the way through is he just doesn't look like a Mourinho player to me. And what I mean by that is he's too short. Doherty fits the profile of great stamina, can get up and down, big physical presence, good in the air. Technically, I don't think he's as good as people make out. Like, I was trying to think last night if I could ever think of many occasions where he'd actually whipped in a brilliant cross. And think of Aurier. How many times does he get left out there and he's putting in cross after shit cross over and over again? So in any case, in either way, I think you need to see it. However, if he walks in the door, he probably is worth paying the extra 1 million over Dyer, for example. Would probably be my opinion if you want to take that chance. He would go straight in the team. There's no question of that. The other thing is, how does he adapt to suddenly playing in the back four? And I'm 90% sure that it would regularly stay as a back four.
Right, let's keep it moving. The main event pod says Adams or Mitrović, which is Che Adams or Mitrović. Mitrović, surely. Che Adams is cheaper, no? Is he 6 or is he 5.5?
Same
Che Adams
price.
Is 6, yeah.
Same price.
Mitrović, surely.
I think the better call might be Adams. But that said, I'm more likely to start with Mitrović for the pure reason that I'm quite likely to potentially start with Armstrong, but quite potentially likely to start with McCarthy as well. And I don't want to start with 3 Southampton players. B, I'm definitely sure I don't really want to start with him and Ings. Yeah. And I'm really happy to pay the extra for Danny Ings at the moment until Adams looks like he can be worth on a proven level being within 2 million in price of Danny Ings, for example. So I think, oddly enough, I think Adams would maybe be the better choice, but I will be going for Mitrović if that makes sense. I think that's the way it's looking.
Yeah, Adams needs a little bit more consistency and to show it. Mitrović as well. Like, if you look at Mitrovic's stats from 2 years ago when Fulham were in the Premier League, they were fine. Like, he did okay. So I would probably go Mitrović there over Che Adams. Foden or Greenwood? There's a million in that.
Greenwood.
I agree with you as well. I just think Greenwood's going to score quite a lot of goals this season. And he may, James, end up being my only Man United midfield coverage. I may go with without Bruno Fernandes at some point.
Are you talking about once you get to game week 2 or just at the start?
Yeah. I may go without Bruno Fernandes. It's about money. It's not about anything else. Do I think Bruno Fernandes will score more points? Yes, but do I have the money for everybody that I want to buy?
Have you figured out a plan at the moment in terms of what you want to do with game week 2?
Not yet.
All right.
Just having a think. Right, FPL _
you do
David.
that, princess.
How can I actually use my bench boost to good effect this year? Well, I would say
game week 19. Listen to Monday's pod.
Yeah, there's a podcast on Monday. If you look back at the full pod that we did, the chip special, just scroll down James's feed or wherever you're listening to the podcast. Just flick back a few and you'll find it. It's called the chip special, and we run down how you can use your bench boost to good effect and what you could potentially do with your wild cards, which some are talking about using early and some are not. FPL Ralph, can triple Liverpool defense work this season?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think there'll be more clean sheets to be had this season for Liverpool than there were last season.
The lesson to learn last year, so I got myself stuck in an idea where I really wanted it. Even when I wanted to find the extra million, I went from Van Dijk to Matip around about game week 7, I think. So I went down that route. But what's really important to say with that is you need all the components available. Whether that's Gomez or Matip, his first choice with Van Dijk, doesn't really matter. I suggest it's probably Gomez. Liverpool's defensive record in terms of goals conceded is better when Gomez plays. But when I say all the components to make that work, that means you need Alisson fit. Because in hindsight, what should have happened last year, the theory of the triple Liverpool defensive, in reality, when we look back on the whole season, was right. The theory that we had at the start was right. The problem was when Alisson got injured in game week 1, it should have been abort. It should have been abort. It should have been right. I'm selling Van Dijk now because there's now a key component that's missing to be relying on fucking Adrian to be keeping clean sheets and stuff. And I went with it for a long, long time. So yes, you can do it. To be honest with you, if Doherty goes to Tottenham, I wouldn't rule out me doing it as well. But it needs all key components to be playing. So if any of them regular back 5, including the goalkeeper, are not available, abort.
So we've got FPL Swag saying Mitrović or 5.5 million midfielder if the 5.5 can upgrade to Foden in game week 3. If not, you can always use the funds to upgrade your defence. I'm a bit lost on your question there, FPL Swag. I mean, if you're taking Mitrović or the 5.5 midfielder, if you take Mitrović, what are you doing in midfield? I'm assuming that means then you've got to put a 4.5, 5 million ringer in there. So I need to understand the context a little bit more about that.
Mitrović is the answer, in my opinion.
Do you have any thoughts on Letizia, Nicholas? This is from Billy Hadaway. Nicholas, Letizia and Thompson getting sacked from Sky Sports. And has Jeff Stelling given you a ring yet, James? Phone rung? DMs? Has he slid into those little DMs of yours?
Imagine the email drops. Hi, James. We've seen what you did talking about a fantasy game from 18 years ago. Talking to yourself for 2.5 hours.
Fantasy game.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I definitely got thoughts on a lot of the vile stuff that I saw on Twitter yesterday. I liked Ian Wright's video. It was really good.
I haven't watched it yet. It did pop up in my timeline, but I haven't watched it yet. What was he saying? That he
just saying everyone wants to make race a thing of it, isn't it? Like if they're the best people for the job, the best people for the fucking job, isn't it?
Why do you think they've been let go?
There's rumour that cost is one reason. So it could be that actually
massive part of it. I think it's a massive part of it.
Salary, they could be tied down to like annual contracts, which are quite decent. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if they've had that written in for quite a while. They might be trying to change the style of the show. So basically, it's like four mates, isn't it? In terms of tactical insight onto a football matter, you ain't going to learn nothing from them guys on Soccer Saturday. No. You go on there to see them having their banter with each other and having jokes while they're watching the games and stuff. So it might be they want to completely overhaul the quality of their products. If they want it to become more of an insightful product, then there is no greater reason other than that to get rid of the three guys who don't offer anything from that perspective. That said, they've kept Merson, but then Merson's good value for the shit that just comes out of his mouth is astonishing sometimes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. I mean, people talk about Alex Scott's are likely, right? Who people know used to play for Arsenal's women and that. Like, she'll talk anybody under the fucking bus about football tactics, mate. She knows way more than these guys who played football in the 80s and 90s and stuff. So, yeah, you know, if she's the choice, great, she's the choice. If Micah Richards goes on there, I could see Micah Richards working on there because that guy just laughs all day. So that works if they're trying to keep the same type of person in there in terms of the banter feel of that product. So, yeah, all right, those guys had a good run. They look like they've all posted on social media last night and thanks Sky for the time and the years and stuff. They've done it for a long time. The thing is as well, it's like anything that changes. The longer something's been in place, the more people tend to move when a format changes or something like that, right? So things do have to change. It's like people were going on last night about Soccer AM. Oh, Soccer AM's been shit. Remember when they used to have Lovejoy? Well, that was the original. Yeah, it was more fun. We used to have the Soccerettes and stuff. But like PC-wise,
do that now.
You look back on it now and you think, oh my God, I used to watch that 10 years ago on a Saturday morning with I didn't have kids, but people be watching that on a Saturday morning with the kids and stuff. So times change, right? If Sky have made that decision, it's up to them. What I would say is I think all three of them have done fine for that particular role on a Saturday afternoon, but none of the three are a particular miss from that perspective.
I'm gonna put it out there. My opinion is that it's much more to do with finances as well.
Could be.
And they are looking at trying to save a few quid here or there. We've got PhD says, do you think Messi joining City would improve or not, or ruin FPL?
That's a good question. Possibly ruin.
Anything that creates us all to go more towards a template is not a good thing.
I mean, look, you know me. If he comes in, I'd put him in at 15 million and say, "There's your choice," right?
Yeah.
The thing is, no matter what people, I wouldn't want him. The novelty of being able to put Messi in your FPL team is straight away going to be a huge draw for everybody. Oh my God, I can captain Messi this week.
His ownership will be 80-90%. 100%.
It won't be if he's 15 million, mate.
No, true.
If he comes in, if they just rock him in and go, oh yeah, he's the same price as Salah and Mane and stuff, then yeah, it probably will be, mate. So I still don't think it'll happen. I think it's all hypothetical. It's really nice to speculate about the idea in terms of where he'd play, whether he'd be a midfielder, forward. I'm pretty sure that it will still be a Barcelona player in a month's time.
Let's keep it moving then, James. Oh, I've lost the questions in front of me. Here we go. FPL Ralph again says, Lloris, 5.5 million, a full season playing in a Jose Mourinho defence. Can he outscore Pope from last season? Do you think he'll stay fit all season, Lloris?
That's always a good question that people...
because that's as important as anything else, right?
I mean, it's worth saying the serious injury that he had last year, with the arm injury against Brighton, it's just a freak, right? Could kind of happen to anybody. He does tend to get the odd niggle now and again. And he also has said this on a few other podcasts recently. He does tend to, every 20 games or so, miss a game. You get the team lineup and it's like, I've got halfway down, I've looked back up and you're like, oh, fucking hell, Gazaniga's there. Why is that? And then you get a follow-up tweet 10 minutes later. Lloris misses out today with a virus or something. And you think, oh, fucking hell. He's just one of them, genuinely. If you're going to go for him, don't get a 4.0 goalkeeper with him. Like, genuinely.
But then suddenly you're talking about 10 million over your goalkeepers lot.
That's part of the point. And then from that perspective, the number 2 at Burnley, we think, and I'm pretty sure when we record with Jack, the turfy topper, will concur with this, we think Peacock Farrell will be the number 2 at Burnley. He's 4.0.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, if you're asking me, yeah, to be honest, I would favour Pope over Lloris. Plus, I think there's a 0.5 option at Spurs that will do the job. Whereas at Burnley, I don't think there's a good 5 million asset. But I do think there's a good 4.5 million asset at Burnley. So for me, from that basis alone, I wouldn't look at it. Whereas
go to Burnley.
With, say, Brighton and Southampton, who have got 4.5 goalkeepers, I'm looking around at the defenders. Am I seeing good 5 million assets there at all? It's all 4.5 that I'm interested in, basically. Whereas Tottenham and Burnley have got examples where there are assets that are good, that are cheaper than the goalkeeper. And I'm always liable then to be drawn that way. I'd say a good flip example is Leno at Arsenal. It might be that Saliba in time or Holding develop as a good 4.5 million option. They're not at the moment. So actually, there's a case to say that Arsenal's best defensive asset from a value perspective at the start could be Leno. I don't think with Tottenham and Burnley, that's the case with Lloris and Pope.
We've got FPL Quinner here. He's got a really good question, James. And this is working off the assumption that Doherty comes to Spurs. What's a better use of £15.5 million? Is it Bruno and Dyer or Rashford and Doherty? He seems to think option B has the opportunity to be way more explosive, potentially.
Rashford and Doherty. Listen, I've spoken a lot about Dyer, right? Eric Dyer could flatline and play 38 games this season and end up with 90 points or so. All I'm trying to say with Eric Dyer is, if Spurs do well defensively, he is going to get drawn to bonus points. I'm absolutely convinced about it. It's a personal opinion based on what I've seen previously at other clubs with Mourinho. The power of the combination of Doherty and Rashford there is much bigger.
I'm with you on that.
Doherty is capable of getting more FPL points than he got last year, whomever he plays for, in my opinion. And Rashford has the explosive. Fernandes consistency, I think we know what we're going to get. But obviously, as we know, the XG crowd will tell you if the penalties dry up and all that. We know. Rashford will smash the thing from anywhere as well, and he's very capable. So Rashford and Doherty, I would strongly favour there.
And to be fair,
the other thing I like about Dyer, just to cut in, I don't think there's many great 5.0 defensive options as well. So it's highlight someone at that value as well.
But then just buy a 4.5, to be honest with you.
That would be my preference, yeah.
Yeah. FPL Quinner said option B is more explosive. So you know your onions yourself, mate. You're asking us to tell you what you already have thought. FPL Perry, what would you consider a good season for your football club and for your FPL squad? I can go first, James, if you like. Top 12, any 12 or higher for my football team would be an amazing season. 50k for my fantasy. I mean, I've never broken the top 100, so really any rank that's got 5 figures, not 6 figures, would be ideal.
A good season for Spurs would be 4th. For FPL, a good season would be 1st. I guess that's probably more likely than Spurs finishing top 4. No, I mean, I only have an aim to try and beat the personal best. So if I could finish top 20k, great. But I wouldn't be disappointed with top 100k again, to be honest. It's getting harder. And I don't treat the game that seriously to be that bothered about it.
Right. Steve Smith says, chocolate at room temperature or from the fridge. If it's the latter, you've lost a listener. I'm afraid for me, it's from the fridge. I like chocolate to have like a bit of bite to it. If it's straight at room temperature and it's a little bit softer, not for me. I like chocolate that's got a bit of bite to it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
The only exception to that is if it's blistering cold, you can get away with it.
Yeah,
as in the weather temperature.
Yes, room temperature is fine, but I need it chunky and yeah.
You couldn't be leaving it out of the fridge in this weather. No. So yeah, fridge.
It is. Is it crazy to go without Salah from the start? This is actually another question that I've seen crop up a lot. Enables a much better overall squad, and it's easier to cover off some of the other big teams' assets that way. I'll be honest with you, Salah hasn't been in any of my drafts, and he's not going to be in any of my drafts. So,
at the moment, he's in mine.
Yeah. With Aubameyang or ahead of Aubameyang?
Oh yeah, no, with I'm pretty sure Aubameyang be my game week 1 captain. With the intention with Salah to sell him immediately in game week 2 to get in the United assets, and I think by the time we get to game week 1, Salah won't be there. I think it'll be Mane, because I just think, you know me, I don't enjoy owning Salah. It's just a personal thing. Everything statistically, even in the restart period, points to Salah the majority of the time. I think I might just go Mane, mate. I think I'll be happier if I do.
in the first season, I was very late on in Salah's first season, I should say, not in the first season of the universe. I was very late on Mo Salah, and I've just never taken to it. I've been on and off Mo Salah plenty. He's done well for me, even as a captain, quite often. But yeah, I'm probably going to end up without. But I think I am missing a trick here with one of those Liverpool attacking assets, so I will probably revisit it. But I do understand what you're saying. Gives you better overall squad balance. Matthew Seward says, how many weeks do you think it is reasonable to plan ahead for bringing in United and City players? I've planned transfers for the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I wouldn't think further than that at the moment. You can have an idea of, I want to move off player X, or I want to target team X at certain stages in the future. That's not a bad thing to be kind of ringing now and going, for example, I don't know, I want to target Chelsea in game week 5. I'm just plucking something off the top of my head. It's not necessarily true. But to kind of ring fence that and think, okay, that's when I want to target a team because their fixture run turns or something like that, it's fine. In terms of physically thinking what your transfers are going to be prior to a game week 1, let me tell you that your opinion is going to change by the time game week 2 comes around on a lot of things. So yeah, I've got an idea in terms of, I want to target United in game week 2 and I want to target City in game week 3, but I'm not much further ahead than that in my thought process at the moment.
FPL Mikey, Doherty to Spurs. So I'm just going to read the question out, but we've already answered it. Why would Wolves sell? Exactly. I'm at loss why Wolves would be selling at what seems a ridiculous price.
It's not right. Something's not right, I'm telling you.
FPL Archer also says the same thing, but asks an interesting question on the end. What does it mean for Wolves defence losing Johnny and Doherty? And
massive potentially.
Does that mean if you were going to buy a Saiss or a Bolly or whoever else it may be, would you be put off those players because the other two are not around?
I think, and a good tip for the guys will be, as we've already said, we recorded with Bradley already last night. That'll go out next Tuesday or Wednesday. And he makes it abundantly clear that loss of Johnny is huge. It's a major blow. And we talked about some of Vinagre's defensive weaknesses and stuff. By the way, he's recommending not to have Vinagre. And it does make me wonder that actually, they're a bit weaker defensively. And if Doherty goes as well, I mean, that's such a source of the way they play with the two wing backs. We didn't speak about it with Bradley, but it did make me think last night, right, with Johnny out for a long period, and if Doherty's going, I wonder if Nuno's thinking to go to a back 4. Is that what he's thinking? Which we haven't seen from them. Was just thinking about it afterwards about the attacking talent they've got with obviously Jimenez, got Neto, Prudence, Jota, Traore, and at the moment you can only get 3 of them on the pitch. Should he look at a 4-2-3-1? He can probably get 4 of them on the pitch. That's the only thing I was thinking. Could it be that he's actually become quite concerned with the lack of goal returns they had during this restart period, and he's thinking maybe it's the right time to change system? I think that's a bad idea, by the way, if that's what he's thinking. But just to cover it, because it's something we didn't discuss, and I thought about it afterwards. I based that on nothing. But to be honest, I'm just trying to find answers in my head as to why Wolves would sell Matt Doherty. It doesn't make sense to me.
You're not going to find that answer, so it's not even worth trying to find it. As a Spurs fan, I'm assuming you'd obviously be very happy with the signing.
Oh yeah, he's a massive upgrade on Aurier.
Do you think Mourinho will let him bomb forward and be an attacking option?
I think if they're going to play that style with Doherty playing the Aurier role, as I like to call it, then he's an upgrade, and that's great for him offensively. But I suspect you'll find there's going to be a lot of games where he plays in a flat back 4 and doesn't cross the halfway line much, particularly when we play the likes of a City, Liverpool. It does still, ironically, make him a threat because he is good at set pieces and stuff as well, which doesn't get mentioned much. It's to be seen. To be seen. I would be very concerned starting with him if he's a Tottenham player in game week 1. That said, if you do want one defensively, he's probably worth paying the extra for from what is available there.
Let's pick, FPL Sammy says, pick an FPL 5-a-side dream team, 1 goalkeeper, 1 defender, 2 midfielders and 1 forward. This is going to be a piece of piss, James. 1 defender, Trent.
Yep.
1 attacker, Sergio Aguero.
You made a strong case for Robin Van Persie, I think.
Yeah, possibly. I think Aguero still. Goalkeeper?
And Suarez would be another one.
Pope maybe in goal?
Pope in goal. To be honest, keeper, it's probably David De Gea, you know.
Maybe. I did own him in the first season that we...
Dave saves was a thing once, right?
It was. Yeah, you're right.
He's the only real player I can remember for a sustained spell where a lot of people had a premium goalkeeper.
Two midfielders, Salah and De Bruyne. Salah, obviously, 300 points, right? You can't argue with that ever.
Yeah, to be honest, yeah, it would have to be in there. And yeah, I think De Bruyne, yeah.
Finton, we have, says, who will score more points over the season? You've got Robbo at 7 million, which is 3 million over the 4 million base for a defender, or Greenwood at 7.5, who is 3 million over the 4.5 base. Zombie team line up in the balance. That said, I'll probably choose both. Both are decent zombie picks, I think.
To be honest, I wanted to cut you off halfway through that question before you even mentioned option B. And the option B didn't change my mind. No, I think if you ask me, will Robertson outscore Greenwood next season? Yeah, I think so.
I mean, Robertson, I would estimate, is going to be somewhere between 180 and 220 in terms of points. So for Mason Greenwood to hit 180, 190 points as a midfielder, it's going to take some going.
If Greenwood outscores Robertson, let me tell you, Mason Greenwood will be in all our teams.
Yeah. Right. Bancy Castle, with auction snake draft nights fast approaching, I'm assuming this is FPL draft, right? What tactics would you take into FPL games where players can only be owned by one team in the league? Do you think there's scope to do a show on the demand for that? I find drafts still out of my league a little bit, out of my brain a little bit. I don't really look at it. Are there any tactics that you would adopt with draft? You've done a draft once.
Yeah, we do a draft with, I get involved in a draft with patrons and stuff, but it's still quite new to me. I don't really understand the question. Sorry.
What tactics in a draft situation? Is there anything you can do to try and help get a better team?
We'll think ahead. So what I did in the draft, and we obviously did it from game week 30 onwards, they all laughed when I started with like Antonio and Bowen with West Ham's first 3 fixtures. But I was looking at it as a longer period and thinking, by the time it comes to game week 33, you guys are all going to want a couple of these West Ham guys, funnily enough. So, and obviously Antonio worked out great.
Yeah, fantastic.
Do you want to trade him? No.
Here's a really good question. Who do you think will be the surprise package this year, and which team can you see having a fall from grace? Newcastle and Sheffield United for me. So Newcastle being the surprise package and Sheffield United having a fall from grace.
Sheffield United will be fine. They'll finish mid-table at worst. I don't see them being involved in a scrap at the bottom. Could they drop into the bottom half? Conceivably, yeah. Could they finish 7th or 8th again? Yeah, quite conceivably. No, it's not Sheffield United. Palace is the obvious one everyone's saying.
That's the fall from grace for me, yeah, for sure.
Newcastle, I think everybody's a bit concerned about as well. I think the quality of West Brom and Fulham remains to be seen. I think they're both going to really, really struggle. And I think from that perspective, it will give a lot of teams a bit of a pass this year. The team, what we're saying, what was the opposite to fall from grace?
Surprise package. I'm going to go with either Southampton
or Brighton
or West Ham United. Yeah, I think one of those two. Will
Southampton, I think, will finish top half, and I think Brighton will finish towards the top of the bottom half.
Yeah. Which team will win the league? Sorry. Let me read this question again. Start again. Sorry, FPL hindsight. I just stabbed your question in the words. Would you take your team winning the league or England winning the World Cup?
Oh, next fucking question, man. We've had this before. I'd rather win the Carabao Cup than England win the World Cup. I don't mean that horribly. I pay my money every week to go and see my club, COVID dependent, whatever. Yeah, I'm desperate for Spurs. Don't get me wrong. I love that every couple of years when we all join together as a nation and support England. But Tottenham's my bread and butter, mate, every week. So, yeah, I'd rather win the Carabao Cup than win the World Cup.
Aidan Morris says, what are your thoughts on Rashford? Is he being overlooked as an FPL asset? Do you think he's capable of scoring more points than Fernandes throughout the season?
Of course he is.
I agree with you on that. Is he being overlooked? I think he's not in a lot of squads now. When it comes to it after game week 2 and 3, where we're trying to squeeze in these City and United assets, a lot of people might be like, hang on a second here, I need to save a bit of money, and that £1 million between Fernandes and Rashford is going to look very appealing for a lot more FPL managers, and that's when Rashford might actually get quite a decent ownership number, because that million does make a big difference elsewhere when there's so many premiums you're trying to squeeze in.
Good do. I know there's a lot of guys out there who think Rashford will outscore Fernandes. I think the price difference of $1 million more for Fernandes personally is about right, in the sense that I think that Fernandes will probably just outscore him by a little bit. That's generally where I'd have it. So I think they're both underpriced, but I think the price difference is correct.
FPL Oakcourt. Everton a valid option at the start of the season. Fixtures look good. Dean underperformed last week. Or are they just shite, is his question.
I'd be careful here because they're playing us game week 1. They've got a great manager. That's what they really have going right for them, is they've got a manager there who's not going to accept substandard performances for very long. I just failed to see the quality in them at the moment to be interested. I know what you're saying, particularly game weeks 2 to 4. It does look appealing. But I think maybe for those looking to wildcard around about the first international break, for example, then, yeah, it's all right. It's okay, but it's not really for me. I can't justify a Richarlison really personally at, say, 8 million when Danny Ings and Jimenez are 0.5 more, and I can have the likes of Antonio and Adams and Wood and Maupay and Mitrović. It just doesn't work, in my opinion. I would have no anticipation in terms of having these guys at the start of my expectations on them. Generally, the only one right now I'd be considering is Anthony Gordon as a 4.5 million option, and I don't think I'll start with a 4.5 million midfielder. So they're off the radar for me.
Right. Josh Fosh says, thoughts on a backline with 3 premiums and 2 4 millions? Well, I've got 1 4 million already in Ben Johnson. I've got 3 premiums with Trent, Robbo and Doherty, and then Eric Dyer holding the fort. I think Eric Dyer down to a 4 million is quite possible. If I get any kind of indication on one that will start, I could end up with 3 premiums and 2 4s. So I think, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Trent, Robbo, Doherty as a Wolves player, 4.5, 4.0 is probably where I'm going to be. If Doherty goes to Tottenham, I think I'd be Trent, Robbo and 3 4.5 million players.
Benny Blanco, why are Chelsea buying everyone?
Because they can afford to. Yeah. And one of the reasons they can afford to is obviously the big transfer ban last year, and they sold Hazard, Morata, and a couple of other players you've never heard of but have had good loan spells, 10 million here, 10 million there. Made about 200 million net or so over the last. I saw a graphic yesterday that even with Chilwell's signing, their net spend over the last 5 seasons, they're actually about 7th or 8th. By the way, Liverpool and Tottenham are not in the top 10 of that. So they haven't gone mad for quite a period. So it's coming. What will be interesting is, depending on how FFP rules work over the next few years, if they get to a cycle point, because remember it's over years period, whether they have to hit a period in, say, 3 years time where they have to do some selling or something, might be something just to think about in a few years. But I think right now they're making a sustained go for it, to make sure, very importantly, that at the minimum they're staying in the Champions League. And that obviously is going to bring them the return on investment over that next 2 to 3 year period, for example. So yeah, there's more to come from Chelsea, but they need to get a goalkeeper desperately. If Thiago Silva looks like he's signing for them, I genuinely think that is an incredible signing.
Yeah.
He's obviously right at the late of his
He was having a medical, career. I heard.
Yeah, he's not at the peak of his powers as he was, say, around about 2014. Let's not forget, by the way, he was suspended for the Germany semi-final. As much as everybody went on about Neymar's injury, he was missing as well. Top centre-half, in my opinion, brings experience. He was playing in the Champions League final last week. Doesn't make many errors. I talk a lot about clubs making short-term signings, and I get concerned about it. I'm like, I'm not sure that's right. It's a short-term fix. It is exactly what Chelsea need at the moment, but they do still need a goalkeeper as well.
Yeah. FPL Pessimistic Potato. What football topic of discussion are you most sick of seeing discussed on Twitter or being asked about? I stay out of Twitter from that kind of point of view. I just ignore it. So I know essential players and all that is there, but I don't get sucked into anything. It probably is Messi right now, really. So there's nothing.
Repetitive conversation. The one that really angsts me, and I apologise to everyone, is when I get asked a question. I've just come off a podcast and just posted a podcast, and I've just spoken about it. Really annoys me.
Listen to the pod.
Yeah, to be honest, I think in my little bubble, everyone listens to pods, and of course it's Twitter, right? And a lot of people don't. People go, "Oh, don't listen to pods." Oh, okay, fine. That's why you're fucking asking. That I find frustrating personally, because I just think, why did I put the effort in to talk about it? The essential one does my head in every time I see it. It's fucking hell. Must own, all that kind of malarkey. The comments of, "Oh, you have to do this." No, you don't. Do what the fuck you like, man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to bypass all the Messi and Doherty related questions now, guys. What we'll do is, should Messi sign for Barcelona? Maybe will be a topic of a people's poll, and we can allow a few questions on that.
For City, you mean?
For City, yeah, of course. I mean, there's questions like if Messi signed for City, would De Bruyne be a better or worse option? All this kind of stuff. Let's not bother speculating about something that may never happen.
The greater podcast wouldn't be about Messi at the moment. It would be about the absolute mess that Barcelona are in. We'll make a better podcast.
Well, we'll do it then, won't we?
FPL
Wilson, when will Sky fixtures come out? Who knows? Is it supposed to be by Friday?
Well, they said this week.
So
someone told me this morning. They said early this week, but then listen, they've been late before. I would expect them in the next 24 hours.
This is quite an easy one, I think. But Tom Campbell, how are we doing, Tom? I hope you're doing all right down in Bristol. Most FPL points for the season. This is predictions, right? And we've got to go with which goalkeeper do you think is going to score the most points?
Alisson.
I was going to say straight away the same thing. I think they're just going to keep so many clean sheets. Non-Liverpool defender.
If he stays at Wolves, Doherty.
Yeah, if he doesn't, Laporte maybe.
Possibly, yes, actually. I think it's a good shout.
Laporte. Midfielder under 10.5 million. Rashford, Greenwood.
If he stays
Antonio.
fit, then it's a forward, mate.
Oh yeah.
Rashford.
Sky that he's in.
To be honest, Sonny's a decent shout.
Son at 9 is not a bad
shout. Put him in that conversation. Ziyech. If you ask me to pin me and say one, I say, yeah, Rashford.
Who just sick game? Yeah, Rashford probably. But either of those Chelsea guys could go mental. Forward.
As in top scorer in FPL forward?
Correct.
Aguero, minutes dependent.
And if Aguero doesn't, it has a similar season to last year.
If Aguero plays 30 games, I think it'd be top FPL scoring striker.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Clean sheet wipeout. Who do you think are the most overlooked assets in terms of their ownership at the moment?
Most overlooked? You could make a case, Rashford maybe.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, you can't really read into City and United ownership numbers because they're not playing in Game Week 1. So let me put one out there for you that I heard on another show that I actually was quite surprised with his ownership. Matt Ritchie is £5 million as a midfielder and has got nothing, like less than 1% ownership right now. If he's playing left-sided as an attacking wing-back, if Newcastle sign Willems or Danny Rose or get him back on loan or whatever, he's not a bad shout. He did have a good spell post-restart, and he picked up some attacking returns there. £5 million is not a lot of money for him, and he takes set pieces.
You've been listening to Who Got the Assist by chance?
No, it wasn't on Who Got the Assist.
Oh, was it not?
It was different video. But it's not bad, right? I think he's a decent shout. But then I look at my midfield of Souček, Ritchie, and Armstrong, 5 million, 5 million, 5.5. That's budget, mate. It's like I've been to Aldi or Lidl.
I would rather pay the 0.5 more for St. Maximin, personally.
Yeah. I'm skint all the time though when I'm playing around with a team. I think having a front line of Martial, Harry Kane, and Danny Ings, and then having a back line of Doherty, Trent, and Robbo is taking up so much of my money.
I also don't particularly want to start with two 5.0 midfielders, although there's a chance that I'm going to start with two 5.5s, of which St. Maximin could be one. And if it's a choice between, put it this way, let me give you two arguments. I think Armstrong and St. Maximin, there's a good case for either. I think that's a close call. If you look at it from a statistical point of view, Armstrong's going to come out winning that all day long. But if I look at it on the eye test of what I saw after restart, I really think big things could happen for St. Maximin. So there's a balanced argument there. If I say to you Souček or Ritchie, that feels very straightforward to me.
It doesn't for me.
No?
No, I'll tell you what. I mean, set pieces is quite a big deal there. He takes quite a few. I mean, Ritchie is more dependent. If Ritchie was an attacking wing back as part of a midfield three or attacking three, he's more interesting to me than potentially Souček. I saw some highlights from I know friendlies. You can't read into any of them. Souček looked a little rusty, actually.
Did he score
against Ipswich? I don't know. I haven't seen all of the highlights. Did he?
Yes, he did, mate. Yes.
I know Haller scored. I saw Haller's goal and I didn't finish it off. But I don't know. It'll be an interesting one anyway. Let's keep it moving. Ronan Megan, are you excited to watch All or Nothing on Monday?
Oh my God, no.
Have you booked out the time to watch
it? I genuinely think, right, cushions, right? What the fuck are cushions? What's the point in cushions? Genuinely, what's the point in them?
They sometimes make a seat more comfortable.
I think that on Monday night, I might grab a pillow out the bedroom and fucking start biting one while I watch it. No, I'm not looking forward to it at all.
I'll be honest with you. I'm going to Cornwall for a week. Anybody that's listening to the pod that's got any Cornwall recommendations, tag me on Twitter. I'm going to go through them all.
Pasty
at Susan Shaw. Yeah, I'm definitely going to eat a couple of those. Don't worry. But I'm hoping to get like a rainy day where it's just pissing down with rain. We can't go out anywhere. So the kids just want to sit at home. Like, all right, you guys can watch a movie or play on your laptops or whatever you're going to do. And I'm going to sit there by myself with my headphones on and watch it all in one go. So let's pray for at least one rainy day in Cornwall that I can watch it in one go. I'm excited for it.
I
it's
think
like
it's
watching
gonna
a car crash, but
it's going to be so cringy. It's like watching him with your brother, like watching your brother have sex or something. The fuck is this weird? I don't want it. Mate. There's too much info going on. There's nothing I think good that can come out of it. The only good possibly is that it's finished. That it's done, it's out, it's open, the whole thing's done, the whole following them around all of last year, which I definitely think possibly had an impact on performances on the pitch, particularly at the start of last season, that it's finished, it's done privately. I don't think some of the things that are going to be coming out about particularly Mourinho are going to be good for anybody. Some of these supposed quotes that we've seen about, and they may well have been sensationalized and taken out of context, like calling Dele Alli lazy and like saying to Aurea, I can't trust you. I don't think these things coming out in public are going to be very good for Tottenham.
This is from Ronan Megan. Can you come up with a 4.5 million pair of defenders that could be rotated in the first 6 game weeks? I think Burnley and is it Burnley and Villa are paired together?
Burnley and Leicester.
Is
a decent one.
So Justin and Charlie Taylor maybe.
Yeah, I like that. The only problem with obviously Pereira Justin is we think Pereira is going to be, we think at the moment he's penciled in to return during that international break, whether he's back straight afterwards or not. That said, Burnley have got West Brom in game week 5, Tottenham in game week 6. So it's not that scary if that's all you're aiming for. Tottenham's at home, by the way. Yeah, Burnley and Leicester could work. The one I like for a really sustained period, and I'm leaning into this now, is Brighton Southampton. Of going Ryan and McCarthy, actually.
Making it a goalkeeping rotation.
Yeah, it's really good, basically, up until when I need it in game week 16. And look, if I get one wrong and there's a clear that the other one's a better choice, then I can downgrade and find a little bit of cash from there. But I'm leaning into that. I would not be put off at all by a few people said Fraser Forster's back at Southampton. I really wouldn't be put off by that at all.
Yeah. Adam P. You know who Adam P is?
3-5 who?
That's him, Mr. Pritchard. What's the best type of bread? White, fluffy bloomer, but toasted with butter and jam. That's
whatever one I'm eating. The way I treat bread is quite simple, right? So if I want a sandwich, I take the bread out, I assess the bread. The first decision is right, is that bread good enough, or do I need to toast it to make this a decent sandwich? That's the first choice. Do I have a preference for white or brown? I go through phases where I'm like, I really fancy brown bread. But
Okay.
I'm really not fussy. As long as something in the middle is edible to add ketchup to, then I'm good with it.
Also, Adam, I'm going to Marbs. You know what that means?
No carbs.
No carbs. I'm not actually going to Marbs, to be honest with you. I just wanted to say it.
You weirdo. I was going to say, why are you going anywhere at the moment? Mad man. And stop booking holidays, people. Just go over it. Just stay here for a while.
Well, I'm holidaying, but I'm staying in the country. And as we've just established, I'm also staying inside the little cottage that we're staying in just to watch All or Nothing.
This is acceptable.
Talking about All or Nothing, Ricky Saunders, and I can tell
Ricky.
he's had a fucking drink. I suspect, like me, you have Dyer and Doherty in your team. If we land the Doc, will you continue with both? It's a bold move and could pay big dividends. I'm going to make sure that I watch All or Nothing before we get Ricky on the show next week.
He's saying he's got Dyer and Doherty at the moment.
And if you buy Doherty, he's going to stick with both and go big.
Oh,
He'll probably
my God.
be going home.
We'll now be accepting the invitations from new Tottenham Hotspur correspondents. Oh, that's going to be a fascinating record next week then. Because Ricky's got more cojones than me. He's a better FPL manager than me as well, so it'd be interesting.
Tim Keane, FPL cricketer, with the general feeling that many assets are underpriced and the move of some high-scoring forwards into midfield, enabling some very strong sides, do you think this could be the highest-scoring FPL season so far? Do you reckon there'll be a lot of points to be had this year? It's got to be with Aubameyang and these guys in midfield. Some new players coming
possibly, but interesting in
Werner and so on and so on.
In Tom Cantwell's talisman theory piece, he noted that the last couple of years overall FPL points has gone down ever so slightly over the last couple of years. So, I mean, with respect, what sort of question? Do I think there'll be more overall FPL points this year or not? Does it matter? Is it going to change your opinion on something at the start or not? Listen, if there's more goals being scored, there's less chances of clean sheets. So you win some and you lose some, right? I don't think it really matters, does it? It will end up roughly where it always ends up.
FPL Chancer Dan, your content output is incredible and much appreciated. But do you fear this extra noise and time demands will impact your ability to make good personal FPL and Sky decisions?
No.
Shall I put it out there? I know I already said that I was watching another FPL video. I think my consumption of FPL content, including our own, like I don't listen back to our own pods or videos or whatever, is almost zero. Like I just don't have the time, let alone anything else. And I feel like the conversations we have are enough. Like I don't need to go fishing for more information elsewhere. So actually, in a strange way, our conversations for me are enough to make my own decisions. And then I'll drip feed in like 2 or 3% of other people's noise. So it doesn't bother me because I don't consume other content.
So basically what you just said out loud is, if your FPL season's shit, it's my fault.
No, if my FPL season's shit, it's my fault. I pick my own players, right? I do my own crazy things, but...
Indeed you do, Leroy Sané over your shoulder. The regret of the content for me is that I haven't got enough time to listen or read up on other people's content anymore. But I, unlike Suj, have more time to be looking at things, analysing, watching games, etc. So to be honest, it's benefiting me. This time last year, I was doing 2 full-time jobs, basically. Now I'm doing 1. So in an odd way, I can focus my brain completely on it now.
And to all you listeners, what that means is James is looking for a second full-time job. If you have one available, it leads nicely on to Jamin Kassam's question. With Nicholas, Thompson and Letizia leaving Soccer Saturday, that opens a James-sized hole in the show, does it not? Listen.
I can make no further comment at this time.
Fantastic. James Mehigan, at one point last season, James ensured that he had a Vardy. James ensured that he had a Vardy. Did you have a Vardy? A 9+ price point striker in case he needed to later get to Kane or Aubameyang.
Yeah.
If James starts without Werner or Aguero, does he have a strategy to transition to them?
Yeah, it's very simple. Danny Ings down to 6.5.
Mm-hmm. And someone else up.
Because I'm likely at strategy, I think comes game week 2, I think I'll be Ings and Martial. So or the other way, sell Martial down and then get up. So I'm gonna have 2 players that are gonna be not far off to get me up there if I deem necessary. So yeah, I'm gonna be in that position where I think I can get to most players quite quickly and I'm happy to take -4s to make them happy if necessary this season.
Right. We have just 4 or 5 more questions to get through, James. Is going without Salah a viable option? A couple of people have asked this. It would mean double Liverpool defence. It perfectly is a viable option here.
Is anybody 100% owned?
No.
There you go.
Exactly. We've got FPL Suffolk Tractor. What are some of the best general tactics at the beginning? I've heard a price point approach, so you're able to move between different players. The Mr. Consistent approach, so you get the Kanes, etc., before you work out who's who. Are there any other approaches that you're taking? I don't want to fall behind the pack early. And I know what you're saying about falling behind the pack early, because I think the first few weeks is so important.
Whenever someone posts their team on Twitter and someone says, what do you think of this? The number one reason why I wouldn't get involved is they probably won't like my answers. The number 2 reason is, the first question I'd want to ask is, what's your strategy? Because it doesn't mean nothing to me. I could look at someone and say, oh, what do you think of my draft? Yeah, great, mate. Are you intending to wildcard in game week 2? I'm guessing that you are, based on what you've got there, for example. Or are you aiming to run this team through and change it week to week up till game week 15, 16 or whatever? What's your plan? So if you've got no plan, that's okay, because it means you're not throwing chips early. And if you say, look, I ain't got a plan, you ain't got a plan. Yeah. But someone's got something in their mind in terms of a plan. It might be, I like their fixtures. Nobody's just plucking 11 names out of a head. There's some theory behind the decision-making that you're making, whatever that is. Explain it. What is your thinking behind your reasoning of what you're doing?
Jimmy Mac and Cheese says the big issue is navigating game week 1, obviously without the Manchester players. And I say Manchester because it's United and City. I'm not just, doing a Sheffield there. What do you feel about having premium placeholder mids that you can step down Salah, Mane, Aubameyang, and stepping down two of those 3 in game weeks 2 and 3, or rolling a free transfer and doing 2 or 3 moves in game week 3 for a hit? It's what you're doing a little bit, isn't it?
95% sure I've got 2 planned transfers for game week 2, and I'll be taking a -4 to make it happen. That's part of my strategy at the moment, and that means coming down off Salah and probably getting up to Martial is part of the plan for that. So he's probably to target, I think for me, probably Fernandes and Martial actually, and then possibly to do similar again for game week 3 with Aubameyang down to De Bruyne as one move, and then decide if I want to do something else. That in itself would then allow me, should I want to, the Martial or Danny Ings to Aguero.
Yeah.
Actually, no, probably leave me a bit short, actually. But that's the sort of thinking of where I'm at in terms of early doors. I'm intending to leave the money in the bank comfortably so I can make that Fernandes Martial move in game week 2. It's all right saying I'm going to make this move. It ain't no good if I leave 0 in the bank. So that's where possibly some of the experience I've learned from Sky might come to my benefit in terms of learning to leave the funds in certain places and not feel like we all feel compelled to do, is spend all the money if we can. When we pick a free hit team, we get compelled to pick the higher price player quite often, even if there's a more obvious and better choice that's a bit cheaper, because, I haven't spent all the money. So I'm well aware of leaving probably at least £1 million if I make that move in game week 1 to work me through it.
And then the last question of the show, James, goes to FPL_mindset Brad J. How good is the news that fans will be back inside a Premier League ground this weekend? Strange that it's his team versus Chelsea, as we play them on the opening day as well. But also our ground is in the middle of nowhere, so using public transport to get there is essential.
It is, yeah. Anybody who's been to Brighton knows you have to get into Brighton and then train back out to Falmer to get there. You have to go back on yourself. Brad's going. He's got a ticket.
Nice.
He's going to the game. I think it's Saturday. So they're allowing in a couple of thousands. He sent us some stuff on our Slack channel last night about seating arrangements. So you can't sit next to anyone. There's at least 3 seats between everybody. You can sing. You don't have to wear a mask in your seat, but you have to wear a mask on like the concourses and stuff like that, I think. So we'll see how it goes. Look, from trying to get fans back in the ground, it's good news, isn't it? It's interesting that UEFA have decided the Super Cup final, I'm not sure when it is, between Bayern Munich and Seville. I think they're going to let in about 10,000. I forget where it is, to be honest. It's obviously not in the UK. again, letting about 10,000, but have said nobody at European games for the foreseeable at the moment. And I was secretly hoping I could probably get into one of these Europa League games as a test. So I think that's absolutely ideal. Get a few thousand into Tottenham for that with the way Tottenham Stadium works. But if UEFA said that it's blanket none for none, then it's none. We accept that. I think we've got a long way to go, unfortunately, still. You know my opinion on this. Having 2,000-3,000 in the ground is probably not going to help. From the armchair view as a spectacle, it's not going to do a lot for you. It will help a little bit inside the ground, but you need the right 2,000 or 3,000 people in there. If it's 2,000 premium ticket holders, it's a waste of time, in all honesty, because they're not going to make any noise. No. You need the right people in there.
That, James, is a Q&A special. We've been through, give or take, a couple 50 questions. And we hope we have you covered. For all you listening in, tomorrow is a live stream. So if you've got another question that crops up, if we see some signings that get made today, you can jump onto YouTube, Planet FPL, 1 p.m. Right, James, is your plan?
I'm actually going to probably do 12 p.m. tomorrow. 12
p.m. tomorrow. Jump on there and do join us. If you need some extra additional content on top of the 20 Correspondent Week podcast going out next week, we do also have Patreon pods next week for all the patrons. You can find out more about that at patreon.com/Planet FPL. Other than that, as always, keep tinkering, stay safe. Thanks for all your support, and ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Cue music, please, man. Ciao.